Welcome to Wrestling with Philosophy. I'm your coach, Amit Palmer. Begin. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling with Philosophy, episode 3 of Intro to Ethics. Today we're going to be looking at the philosophy of Epicurus. So Epicurus believed that people didn't live good lives for two main reasons. The first is that people worry about the wrong things. The second is that they pursue fulfilling the wrong kinds of desires. Let's take a step back and remember what we're interested primarily in this section of the course. The first is figuring out what sorts of things I should pursue in order to have a good life. The second is once I've established what I should pursue, I need to figure out how to go about pursuing it in the best way possible. Alright, so what are Epicurus' answers to these questions? What ought I to pursue? He says we ought to pursue pleasure. Actually, his view isn't quite so simple. We're going to get into that in a moment. It might be better to characterize him as saying what we ought to pursue is tranquility, but we're going to look at those details in a moment. Now, how ought I to achieve the type of pleasure that he's talking about? The first thing is stop worrying about the things that actually don't matter. The second thing is I ought to learn to distinguish between the types of desires that are going to actually bring me closer to the state of tranquility and the types of desires that will never bring me to that state of tranquility. Epicurus' view on pleasure wasn't so straightforward. So when he says that we ought to pursue pleasure, what he really means is he wants us to pursue a state of tranquility. And let me explain how that works. He distinguished between static pleasures and moving pleasures. So when I'm hungry and I have a lack and I desire food because I'm hungry, that's a moving pleasure. As I eat, I'm fulfilling that desire, and that gives me pleasure. But a static pleasure is when I'm not hungry anymore and I'm satiated and I'm just all good. I don't need to pursue anything anymore. So in the hierarchy of pleasures, Epicurus placed the static pleasures above the moving pleasures. And so what we really want to do is pursue a state of tranquility where we are in a static state of pleasure, where we don't really need to have anything fulfilled. We're just maintaining. What? All right, I'll bite. Tell me how to get rid of all this anxiety that's ruining my life. Well, Epicurus prescribed what he called the tetrapharmakos. The tetrapharmakos is what you get when you combine big pharma with big philosophy. It's a series of 4 things to always keep in mind. Number 1, don't fear God or the afterlife. Number 2, don't worry about death. Number 3, what is good is easy to get. Number 4, what is bad is rare and short-lived. Alright, so why shouldn't I be scared of God or the gods? Well, because the Creator God is perfect and wouldn't sully his hands messing around in human affairs. So God is not going to either cause us problems or bring us benefits. We're on our own. God did his work making the universe, and so whatever happens on earth stays on earth, and God's not going to mess with it. So if you're worried, oh, if I do this, is God going to get mad at me? Or maybe if I do this, God's going to be happy with me? Don't. Because God doesn't care. Or maybe he does care, but he isn't going to change what he's already going to do? Well, this leads us to the next point. Don't worry about death. So first of all, Epicurus had a metaphysical view where there's no afterlife, because the soul is made of these other kind of soul particles, and they require the body. And so when the body's gone, the soul's gone too, and so you're gone. And so there's no life after death to worry about. You don't have to worry about hell. You don't have to worry about heaven. So all that stuff all goes away. You don't have to worry about it. You're halfway through your anti-anxiety prescription. Now, why else should we not worry about death? Well, in order to suffer something bad, you have to have awareness. And if you're dead, you have no awareness. And so the badness of being death is no concern of yours, because you don't exist. And when you're alive, you're not dead. And so death is not something to worry about. He's not saying it's not unreasonable to worry about a painful death. Well, as long as you're alive and experiencing the pain, sure, maybe you can worry about that. But being worried about your life ending, the anxiety that comes from those thoughts, it doesn't make sense to worry about it, because when you are dead, you have no awareness of being dead, and so the badness of being dead can't affect you. And when you're alive, you're not dead. And so there's nothing to worry about. You can relax, man. Number 3, we'll go into more detail in the next section, but just for now, what is good is easy to get. So the sorts of things that are going to make your life go well and lead you to a pleasant life are really easy to get. Enough food to live, friends, independence, self-sufficient work, meaningful work, clothing, shelter, food, water, air. These are all fairly easy to get. If you find yourself pursuing other stuff, that's where you're going to find yourself having an unpleasant life, because of all the anxiety that comes from trying to achieve a life of luxury or fame or power. The fourth thing to keep in mind is that what is bad is rare and infrequent. So we can divide pain across 2 dimensions. One is it's intense or it's dull, and one is it's short-lived, and one is it's long-term. So most intense pain is very short, so don't worry about it. It's going to be over soon. And most dull pain, if it's long-lived, well, it's just dull. There's also other pleasures you can have in life, and so what if there's a little bit of pain in the background? Now, occasionally, there is long-term intense pain, but it's very rare. And because it's rare, you shouldn't worry about it. Don't carry all that anxiety. It's just probably not going to happen. Relax, man. So Epicurus argued that if we keep these 4 thoughts in our head, then we will have a life free of anxiety. All right, now we're going to get to what's my favorite part. Epicurus is going to mark several distinctions between types of desires, and this is going to help us make sense of his idea that a pleasant life isn't one in the pursuit of pleasure, but one that is free from pain. So what we're trying to aim for really is a tranquil life, and that is the best life. Epicurus writes, "We must also reflect that of desires, some are natural, others are groundless, and that of the natural, some are necessary as well as natural, and some natural only. And of the necessary desires, some are necessary if we are to be happy, some if the body is to be rid of uneasiness, and some if we are even to live. He who has a clear and certain understanding of these things will direct every preference and aversion towards securing health of body and tranquility of mind, seeing that this is the sum and end of a happy life." All right, let's break that down. The first distinction is between desires that are natural and others that he calls groundless. The distinction here is desires that we might share with animals that arise from nature or from our nature, and those that are groundless. Here he means desires that are implanted by our culture or just that are socially constructed. So you might think of examples such as a desire for fame, a desire for extreme luxury, for extreme wealth, for extreme power. These sorts of desires aren't inherent to our nature. We acquire them through socialization. So why does this distinction matter in terms of living the best possible life? So here's what Epicurus thought. Now, the natural desires, such as a desire for food or shelter or water, when you're hungry, once you eat, your body will naturally tell you when to stop eating, when that desire has been fulfilled. Or maybe even something like hanging out with your friends. When you've been out socializing all night, at some point you need some time alone. So our natural desires, we have a built-in natural limiter telling us when to stop pursuing that. The groundless desires are different. Because they aren't natural, we don't have a built-in regulator. So if I'm pursuing wealth, at no point does my body tell me or my mind tell me when I should stop. In the way that when I'm hungry and I eat a lot of food, then I have a certain feeling that tells me to stop. The same goes for fame, and the same goes for power. And so these groundless desires are what Epicurus calls empty. You will never ever feel satiated in pursuing these desires. And if you fail to mark the distinction between the natural desires and the unnatural desires, you may spend all your time trying to fulfill desires that are in fact unfillable, and as such, you will not live a good life. The other distinction is between natural desires that are necessary and natural desires that just are natural. So here are some examples. I have the desire to eat, the desire to find shelter, the desire to drink when I'm thirsty. These are all natural and necessary. If I don't fulfill them, things are not going to go well for me. Now, some other desires are natural, but I'm not going to die if I don't fulfill them. So the most common example here would be the desire to be in love or the desire to have sex. You might not have the happiest life if you never have sex, but you're not going to die. All right, so within the category of necessary desires, he marked three distinctions. So there are natural necessary desires that are required for me to be happy. So Epicurus believed that in order to be happy, I have to have good friendships, and I have to have meaningful work, and I have to be self-sufficient. The other category of natural necessary desires are ones that if we don't get rid of them, we feel uneasy. So the example he gives here is the desire for sex. The third type of necessary natural desire is the kind that we need to fulfill just to live. And this would include food, shelter, water. If we don't have those things, we're not even going to live. All right, so if we have a good understanding of the various categories of desires, this allows us to make the right choices about which desires I should put my energy into fulfilling. If I put my energy into fulfilling the desires that are insatiable, the bottomless ones or the empty ones, there's no chance for me to have a good life. Whereas if I dedicate myself to fulfilling the necessary desires, the ones that are necessary for me to be happy and the ones that are necessary for me to live, and occasionally get rid of the uneasiness brought on by unfulfilled natural desires, those that aren't necessary for happiness and aren't necessary to live, in the middle category there, then I have a shot at the good life. All right, he finishes the section with this, and this is what I want you to think about. For the end of all our actions is to be free from pain and fear. And once we have attained all this, the tempest of the soul is laid. Seeing that the living creature has no need to go in search of something that is lacking, nor to look for anything else by which the good of the soul and of the body will be fulfilled. The idea here is once you correctly identify which desires to pursue, you will achieve a tranquility in your mind and in your body that is commensurate with the good life. Just hang with your friends, just eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired. Just only work enough so that you can pay for your basic needs. Remember, if you don't have all these grand political aspirations, or you don't care about being the top Instagram girl, you don't need the latest fancy watch or the best car, you actually don't need to work that much. And so you have more time to be with your friends, to contemplate your life, to read some philosophy. And these are the things that are going to give you the type of pleasure that is commensurate with the good life. And so, what do you think? Is this the good life? One that the life of tranquility? Is this the best possible life? What? Now, one might object to Epicurus in this way. Look, Epicurus, you're saying that it's all about pleasure. If it's all about pleasure, then I should be like the guys outside. I don't know if you can hear them. So, my neighbors, I got some fraternity houses next door. I got another sorority house next door. They're out. It's Friday night. I'm here recording videos, following Epicurus' advice. These fools, they're not having any real pleasure. They're deluding themselves. They are pursuing the wrong desires. I just feel like I need to go out there and tell them. Probably won't listen. So here's the objection to Epicurus. Why aren't these people getting more pleasure than me? I mean, it certainly looks like they're having more fun than me. Well, Epicurus is going to say this. So the bodily pleasures are the most intense, but they're of the shortest duration, and also there's a cost. So we're not just pursuing pleasure; we're looking for net pleasure. So if I go out drinking tonight with all the bros, well, I'm going to pay for it tomorrow morning. I'm not going to feel well. I'm going to be dehydrated. I'm going to have a headache. And even though I had a short burst of pleasure at night, well, the pain and discomfort I'm going to feel the next day doesn't make it worthwhile. It doesn't stack up relative to just hanging out here, making YouTube videos by myself with my dog for my students. There's no comparison. The other thing Epicurus is going to say is that the type of bodily pleasures that people typically associate with pleasure, alcohol, drugs, eating fancy food, these are all more difficult to acquire than the types of desires he recommends we pursue. And because they're more difficult to acquire, we have to work more. We develop anxiety because now I'm not satisfied with just my bread and olives. I need my fancy sprouted grain avocado toast, whatever. And now I can't buy a house because I bought avocados instead. Now I have nowhere to live. So in the long run, I'm better off just eating my regular bread and olives. That's the lesson. All right, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is just something to think about. Suppose your friend comes to you asking for advice. They're dating two different people. The relationship with person A is emotionally stable. Everything goes smoothly. They share interests. There's no big fights. On the other hand, there isn't a big sense of passion. The relationship from your friend's point of view is built on comfort and stability. On the other hand, there's person B. This is a fiery, passionate relationship. The person makes it so your friend can't think straight since they're always thinking about their partner. They go through their day distracted and come to class or work exhausted from staying up all night doing Lord knows what. Person B makes your friend smile and laugh, but they also fight a lot, leading to periods of emotional distress, only to find themselves laughing and smiling again in a few days until the next conflagration. So, what would Epicurus say to your friend about what they should do here? And what would you tell your friend to do, or what would you do in a situation like this? I lied. I'm going to give you one more thing to think about. Suppose I marry the partner of my dreams. All my life, this relationship is the primary source of pleasure in my life. All my natural, necessary, and unnecessary desires are fulfilled. I die before my spouse. And unbeknownst to me, my spouse has been cheating on me our entire relationship with my best friend. I never learn of this deception, and as such, it never affects the pleasure I get from my relationship to my partner or to my friend. If pleasure is the most important good in measuring the goodness of a life, does the fact that I never discovered the treachery undermine that claim? Otherwise stated, what's the relationship between reality and perception in evaluating the goodness of a life? Think about it. I'll see you back here next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.